Every day, millions of people step into cars driven by strangers trusting them to get home safe. But what happens when that trust is broken? When a routine ride becomes a journey into terror? Tonight, we bring you 3 true stories of Uber and taxi rides that went horribly wrong, rides that started like any other but turned into nightmares no one could forget. These stories are real, chilling, and a reminder that danger can lurk when you least expect it. Emma Langston was a 22-year-old journalism student at the University of Denver, balancing her studies with part-time work and a small but close group of friends. She was known for being responsible, level-headed, the kind of person who planned her nights carefully, always letting someone know where she was. One cold Saturday night in late March 2019, Emma attended a small house party just a few blocks from campus. The gathering was cozy, nothing wild, a handful of classmates, some music, soft laughter filling the living room. It was the kind of night that felt like a calm bubble in the chaotic swirl of college life. But even in calm moments, unease can creep in. As the clock neared 1 a.m., Emma felt a subtle but growing discomfort. The conversation seemed to slow, the atmosphere shifting. There was a weight in the air, an almost imperceptible tension that made the shadows in the corners of the room feel heavier. She brushed it off at first, blaming the late hour and tiredness. Still, the urge to leave grew stronger. At 1:15 a.m., Emma decided to head back to her dorm. Her best friend offered to walk with her, but Emma declined. "I'll just order an Uber," she said with a reassuring smile. She stepped outside into the cold Denver night. Snow still blanketed patches of the sidewalks, icy winds twisting through the empty streets. Her breath came out in quick white clouds as she unlocked her phone and opened the Rideshare app. The app assigned her a driver named Gregory, a black Toyota Camry, plate number 58W. L49. The car was due in 2 minutes. Emma waited on the curb, shifting from foot to foot, the cold biting through her jacket. When the black Camry pulled up, she glanced briefly at the license plate but didn't check closely. The driver's face was obscured by a thick black hoodie pulled tightly over his head. A surgical mask covered his mouth and nose, despite the city having lifted all mask mandates months before. Something about his appearance felt off, the way he sat rigidly, his hands covered in thick, black rubber gloves, and a strange scent wafting through the slightly cracked window. Emma slid into the back seat. The interior smelled overwhelmingly of pine air freshener, but beneath it, a faint but sour odor lingered, like something old and decaying hidden beneath layers of masking scent. The driver said nothing. Emma tried to break the silence. "Busy night?" she asked quietly. No answer. Minutes passed. Emma's phone showed the route clearly. A right turn, then straight ahead for a few blocks. But the car kept going straight. She glanced nervously at the rearview mirror. The driver's eyes were hidden. No flicker of recognition, no glance back. She tried again. "Excuse me, I think you missed the turn." Still nothing. The car left the familiar campus streets behind and entered the industrial district, a maze of warehouses, rusted fences, and broken streetlights flickering weakly. Snow had turned to slush here, and the street lamps cast strange, warped shadows on the cracked pavement. Emma's unease grew into a knot of fear. Her phone's GPS froze the blue, representing her location stuck just outside the party house, as if she hadn't moved at all. She felt the windows fogging up, but her breath wasn't causing it. The fog seeped inward, thick and damp, like something alive curling inside the car. Her pulse raced. She tried the driver once more. "Please stop the car." Then his voice came, low, hoarse, layered, as if 2 voices were speaking at once, slightly out of sync. "You don't belong here." Emma's hands gripped the seat tightly. In the dim light, she caught sight of his face again, or rather, what should have been his face, but it wasn't there, just a black void beneath the hoodie. Her heart thundered, fear screamed in her mind. She unbuckled her seatbelt as the car rolled slowly toward an intersection. She flung open the door and dove onto the icy asphalt. Pain exploded in her palms and knees, but she scrambled to her feet and ran toward a nearby warehouse glowing dimly in the night. The night guard called 911 at the police station. Emma recounted everything in detail. Officers reviewed surveillance footage from nearby buildings. In black Toyota Camry, ever pulled up to the party house. N.O. Gregory was logged in Uber's system. In fact, the ride had been canceled 3 minutes before Emma got in. Therapy followed. Sleepless nights, a creeping paranoia that never fully left. Emma told her therapist about waking at exactly 1:15 a.m. every night, hearing a car idling outside her dorm window. She would check, but no one was there. Friends tried to reassure her. It was just stress. But Emma knew something had hitched a ride that night, something that still waits in the dark. Jason McKellar had driven a taxi for over 15 years in rural Pennsylvania. He was no stranger to long, quiet nights punctuated by the occasional odd passenger people with strange stories or even stranger requests. But on March 2nd, 2018, something happened that unsettled him in a way no fare ever had before. That night, Jason's shift was nearing its end. The roads were slick with ice and shrouded in a thick, creeping fog that seemed to swallow up the yellow glow of the street lamps. The cold bit through his jacket as he sipped lukewarm coffee, waiting for the next call. Then the dispatcher came through. "Jason, pick up at the Blue Ridge Diner off Route 14. Be advised, it's after hours." Jason frowned. The Blue Ridge Diner had been closed for months. Sported windows, empty parking lot cracked with weeds. No one should be there. Still, it was a request, and drivers didn't get to pick their fares. He pulled into the diner's cracked parking lot, the cab's headlights slicing through the fog. There she was, a woman standing barefoot at the edge of the lot. Her clothes were soaked through, an old-fashioned floral dress clinging to her frail frame. Her hair hung in wet strands, plastered to her pale face. Jason flicked the interior light on, revealing a face so still, so pale, it seemed almost translucent. She didn't say a word. She didn't move. She simply stepped silently into the back seat. Jason glanced at her hands clutching a small music box, carved with intricate designs and stained with rust. His skin prickled. He cleared his throat. "Where to, ma'am?" Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "Just past the bridge." Jason nodded and pulled back onto the road. The fog thickened with each mile. The air grew colder, biting through the cracked windows. Jason's breath fogged the windshield, but the woman's breath did not. Static hissed from the radio speakers despite the device being off. Jason's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. The GPS blinked out. His dashcam flickered and shut off. The world outside became a gray blur, the thick fog curling around the skeletal trees like smoke. Finally, the rusted bridge loomed ahead, a narrow span crossing a swollen creek. Jason slowed. "Here," she said, voice distant. That he pulled to the side, peering into the darkness beneath. No lights, no houses, just the relentless rush of water. Jason turned back to ask if she wanted to get out, but the seat was empty. The music box lay open on the seat, its tiny mechanism playing a warped, distorted lullaby. A cold dread filled Jason's chest. He radioed dispatched. No pickup request had come from that area. Days later, Jason sat with police detectives who shared a chilling story that a woman named Louise Hartley had disappeared here in 1955. Her body was never found. Rumors said she drowned beneath that very bridge, her spirit trapped in the currents, forever waiting. Jason never returned to that route after nightfall. He quit night driving altogether. Sometimes, he said, late at night, his taxi radio would crackle to life, playing the warped lullaby from the music box, an echo from the past no one could explain. Sarah Long's mornings followed a strict rhythm: wake up early, dress quickly, grab a hot coffee, and get to the corner to catch her usual Uber pool ride to her office in downtown Los Angeles. She enjoyed the routine, the quiet hum of the city, waking up, the background chatter in the car, and the small community of regular commuters who often shared the ride. On that Tuesday morning, the sky was still a deep shade of navy blue as Sarah stepped out of her apartment building. She checked her phone. 6:42 a.m. Her Uber was due in 3 minutes. Her driver, Malik, was already waiting. Malik was calm, friendly, always with a polite smile. Sarah climbed in the back seat and greeted the 2 other passengers. A middle-aged woman sat on the passenger side, scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging Sarah's hello. Beside her was a teenage boy, earbuds in, bobbing his head quietly to music. The interior smelled faintly of cinnamon and the lingering freshness of morning rain. The car pulled away smoothly. Weaving through the pre-rush traffic, Sarah relaxed, pulling out her phone to scroll social media. Everything felt normal. About 10 minutes into the ride, Malik slowed down at a curb and pulled over. Sarah glanced up as a tall figure emerged from the shadows, a man in a gray hoodie. The hood pulled low to cover most of his face that he moved quickly but without urgency. There was something off about him. No bag, no phone, no visible belongings. He slid into the back seat behind Sarah, his presence instantly making the small car feel cramped and tense. Sarah's eyes flicked to her app for passengers listed. The man was not one of them. Unease prickled her skin. She leaned toward the teenager beside her, whispering, "Do you know who he is?" He shook his head slowly. He wasn't here before. He just appeared. Malik's eyes darted into the rearview mirror. "Sir, can you please confirm your name and destination?" No reply. The silence thickened. Sarah's heartbeat quickened. Then, suddenly, the man's hand emerged from the sleeve of his hoodie. A glint of steel caught the early light. That it was a knife, small but sharp. "Drive." The man hissed, voice low and threatening. The car went deadly silent. Malik's hands tightened on the steering wheel, shaking, but his voice remained steady. Okay. No one needs to get hurt." Sarah felt every muscle tense. She scanned the rearview mirror, watching the man's eyes cold, unreadable. Her mind raced. What could she do? Instead of heading toward downtown as expected, Malik turned sharply, steering the car toward a brightly lit building. The LAPD's 7th Precinct. Sirens wailed nearby. Police officers suddenly appeared, rushing toward the car. The man jumped up, screaming a chilling, guttural sound that seemed more animal than human. Officers tackled him. When searched, the man had no identification, no fingerprints, and no record in any police database. He vanished from all systems. In the days that followed, Sarah tried to return to her normal routine, but found herself plagued by nightmares. She began noticing strange photos appearing on her phone, blurry images taken inside the car during that ride, faces she didn't recognize, shadows that moved unnaturally. She deleted them, but they kept returning. Sometimes, her phone would ring at odd hours with no caller ID. Other times, she'd receive cryptic text messages filled with static and silence. Sarah stopped using Uber Pool altogether. Months later, Malik reached out to her. He told her the man had disappeared from custody. No record, no known name, no explanation. Some drivers said they'd seen similar figures before, shadows who could slip between worlds. Sarah never forgot the man in the gray hoodie, and she warns others now, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And never, ever get too comfortable in the back seat. These stories may sound like horror fiction, but they are based on real events and real people who faced unimaginable terror during rides meant to be safe. In a world where we rely on strangers behind the wheel, it's crucial to stay alert, trust your instincts, and always be prepared to act. Remember, sometimes the scariest passenger isn't who you see, but what you don't. Thank you for listening. Stay safe out there.